being broadcast around the world. Thanks everyone for joining us on the Solar Objections live action role play. I have the pleasure to introduce a big UFC fan, fellow poker player, Solar Pro, and my friend, Solar Joe.
We are back for another episode. Thanks for everybody joining us on the Solar Objections live action role play. And today we have a superstar Solar Pro in the house, Randy Jason. And a lot of you guys may not know him, but I know him well. He does not have to be in solar. This guy has been an investment banker for 20 years, took a couple of years off and could have done whatever he wanted. And he decided, let me join solar. Ever since then, the last 4 years, he has been impacting families, homes, financially, environmentally, of course. But not only that, I personally have learned so much from this guy. We have a great dynamic, kind of yin-yang, where I'm kind of outgoing and short-winded and get right to the point. But Randy, he's really maybe long-winded, but he's great information, always on, has that. He listens also as much as he talks. So this is a guy who's always bringing great value. I learn from him every time I talk to him. So I really want him to get on the show. So Randy, thank you so much for making some time to be on here, man.
Joe, really appreciate the opportunity. I can't say enough about you because the truth is every single time I'm with you, I learn so much too. So the audience itself, welcome all. I appreciate it. Again, I appreciate the opportunity to speak in front of you. I know you asked me to talk about some things today. So what's on the agenda today?
Let's go. So first of all, everybody who's watching, Randy is super busy. He made time for us just to give value. So if you're thankful or grateful, go put in the comments, thanks, Randy, or put let's go, get some energy going on in here. But if you have any questions for him, man, take this opportunity, ask him questions, maybe give an objection you want him to handle, or you want to just let him know how well he's doing. Put it in the comments. But if you want your name shown, you have to go to the bottom of the post, click on the StreamYard's link to give us permission, or it's going to say Facebook user. As long as you know that, it's game on. But today, Randy is actually doing us the honor and doing a short training on how to sell solar as an asset, which is really crucial in the solar industry. So let's go.
So Joe, you bring up an interesting story here, and part of learning about selling solar is really recognizing the pieces towards the process of selling solar. And this is one of those steps. And there are so many steps involved, but let's be honest. No one can have a monopoly on any one idea. So this is an idea, right? What's an asset? Let's define what an asset is. Let's define what a liability is. In order for us to really dive into putting value on solar energy as an asset versus an expense known as a liability, let's define them. So what's an asset? An asset's home ownership, right? It could also be owning an investment. I'm going to use a little bit of my investment banking background. What's an investment? An investment you could own would be a stock, a bond, a mutual fund. But an investment, let's just say it's something that we own. Now, let's define a little bit further. What's a liability? Well, we know them as expenses. What happens? Every month we get an expense. Now, whether it's a lease car payment, whether it's an electric bill, because we're all in the solar energy space, right? So let's identify a little bit more about that expense. But even though we talk about liabilities, we also talk about what they are. They are an expense. So what's an expense? Fundamentally, it's any dollar that's spent that won't be returned back to you. So I always look at things and say, do I own it? Do I not own it? And if I can determine if I don't own it, the question is why I don't own it. Is there an opportunity for me to own it? So I always look at it and I say, let's try and express that to the homeowner, the person that's interested in solar, because we already know that if you went back into time, and I'll just use a little example here. When we talk about this solar opportunity for our clients, the opportunity to join the solar energy business, what's changed in the energy world? Technology's changed. What technology? Well, You have the opportunity today of converting an environmental and financial expense. Again, a liability to the environment, a liability to a family's net worth. And you have the opportunity of changing that into an asset, something that you own. So let's go back into time, our ancestors, for just a second. Let's talk about them. Maybe our great-great-grandparents, when energy was created back in the late 1800s, electricity was created, they just didn't have the technology that solar panels have today, where we can take this energy that's a green energy, a renewable source. The sun comes up every single day. It lands on these solar panels and it converts this energy that we can use today without having all of that environmental expense. So understanding the assets versus liabilities, I really want to make sure that we own the concept of what an expense is. It's not just a fiscal expense, a financial expense. It's an environmental expense. And however you want to impact the world, however you want to impact this business, if you really want to love something, love the fact that you're impacting the world around you. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, think about this. You're burning a fossil fuel. It goes into the atmosphere, whether it's coal, oil, or gas, whether it's a nuclear waste experience in some capacity. But when you burn that, you're going to remove that energy by producing it from the sun on your roof. You're going to remove that from the atmosphere. Think about this. When it rains, what happens to that stuff that burns from the clouds? It's going to land on our water table. Truthfully, it's going to land on the water, the ground that vegetation grows from, that we eat and ingest and have in our food every single day. So what's better to promote better health? Reducing also another aspect of what is an expense to the environment, but how about global warming? The entire concept of global warming. You're warming the atmosphere whenever you burn something. Well, if you eliminate that, it's not only going to be better for you, but let's look at the short-term experience. How about your neighbors? Let's broaden it a little bit further. How about your town? How about your county? How about the state? Let's even broaden it further. How about the United States? Because we're in the US, but how about let's look at the global impact. So from an environmental perspective, if you want to go into the deep dive of really understanding how to sell this as somebody who wants to impact the world and go solar, I would go after that component of liability. You're getting rid of that stuff in the atmosphere. But what happens and what has continued to change by our ancestors? Well, technology has changed. Now we can convert 99.5% of the energy that's produced from the sun into truly energy that we can use in our home from the solar panels that's producing the energy. I just want to touch base a little bit further also on the financial benefits of this too, because I touched a lot on the environmental piece for about 2 or 3 minutes, guys, maybe 3 or 4. But look at a financial expense. What's a financial expense? Again, just redefining what I said. This is me in a long-winded approach for just a quick second. But remember, you're spending money and you're not getting anything for it because your energy expense, it keeps coming every single month. There's no end date. Absolutely no end date. So instead of paying your electric bill, which is ultimately making the utility company holder, the utility company owner, or the stockholder that owns that utility company stock wealthier, one takes that same expense and pays for their solar system. It simply means taking a never-ending expense and converting it into something that we own, known as an asset. So when you own your electricity versus renting your electricity without an end date, you've now taken an expense and once again converted it into an asset. So let's use a little bit more of a deep dive example. Let's talk about an electric bill. Let's say the average electric bill is $150. So that's equal to $1,800 a year, $18,000 over 10 years. How much is that in 20 years? $36,000, right? Simple math, 150 times 12, 1,800, 18,000 times, 1,800 times 10, 18,000 times 2 would be $36,000 without any adjustment for inflation. I do want everyone to recognize that inflation truly does increase the cost of electricity. And I want you to know that if you looked at any 20-year period of time, whatever dollar amount that you pay today for your electric bill, with an inflation rate between 3 and 4% each year, that number would compound. Instead of you paying $36,000 over a 20-year period of time, that $150 bill, it's like you're paying approximately $70,000. Now I'm curious, if the average solar system costs $40,000, how many pairs of shoes could if you're, a guy selling solar, your wife, how many more pairs of shoes could she buy for another $30,000? The difference between an out-of-pocket expense versus owning your own electricity. I recognize there's tons of different examples that you could use to take $30,000 of wealth. What can you do with it? Well, if you have kids, how about pay for college? How about put it towards retirement? How about making your life a better place? Taking that extra vacation every single year, if that's what you choose to do with that extra money. But that means a family keeps the difference. And then you produce energy. I'm using an example over 20 years, right? But you're going to produce energy for 40 to 45 years with those solar panels that are made today. So that means you're going to produce another 20 to 25 years for relatively minimal costs out of pocket. And you've converted this liability, this expense, into an asset. So when we connect this value proposition with the homeowner, you have to remember there's this additional value component that we haven't even touched base with. So everybody that puts solar energy on their house has to recognize that I want to take a different perspective. I'm going to pause with my thought for a moment. Imagine one shopping for a home. There's two homes that are exactly alike. They're next to each other. One house has a pool, the other house doesn't. Same square footage, same geography, location. They're neighbors. One has the same view as the next. The only difference is they have a pool. So, you're shopping for a house. You're going to probably pay more money for that pool. It's an amenity. But think about the guy that owns the house next door. He doesn't have a pool. But he decides to say, you know what, I'm going to put a pool in the ground. So it's going to cost him money. I don't know how much it's going to cost him. We don't know how big it's going to be. But it's an amenity. It's like whether or not you put a brand new bathroom in your house or a brand new kitchen in your house, but something that's going to add value to your home. Well, define that value for just a second. The homeowner that chooses to put that pool in the ground, they're going to pay money. When are they going to get compensated for that pool? They're going to get paid when they sell the house to the next homeowner. Just like my example a moment ago, if you have two houses that are exactly the same, you're going to pay more for that home next door that has a pool because it's an amenity, something that you're going to have. Now, I'm going to connect this value proposition a little differently because I believe that what really needs to be understood in this concept is when we recognize that there's an additional asset, there's an additional increased value. So when you connect the value of recognizing that you no longer have an electric bill by going solar, theoretically, as much as you can offset from the, putting all these solar panels on one's property based on how much energy you use. I want to use that disclaimer correctly, guys. But I also want you to know that when you have this amenity, this pool is going to add value. When you have solar energy that's producing this income each month to pay your electricity so that your electricity bill is as close to zero as possible, it too is also going to raise your property value. Now, the question is, what's the property value increased? Well, realtors throughout the United States have come together and they've realized it's between 5 and 17% of your property value. Let's put it into dollars and cents. So if we were on the East Coast, versus the West Coast, we know that there's a different dynamic for cost of living. Middle of the country as well. So I'm going to use 5 to 17% as what your property value is going to increase for. But I want to explain to the audience right now a couple things. The reason why it's going to go up, that energy income is something that the future homeowner is going to pay you for, not having a future electric bill when owning that house. So realtors have come together and they realized, you know what? How much does it go up in value? It's going to be anywhere between $3,000 and $6,000 per kilowatt installed on your roof. So what does that mean? Well, if the average homeowner has a 10 kilowatt system, your value on your home is going to be increased between $30,000 and $60,000. Keep in mind, if the average solar system is less than $40,000, and they're also getting a federal tax credit today, in the year 2021, it's 26%, through and including 2022, but after which it goes to 22%. So we recognize right now that the homeowner is going to get a tax credit. Everything is deferred to the accountant in regards to this qualification piece. And I'm not an accountant, so I'm going to share that disclaimer. But I do want you to recognize that that's about $10,000. Well, if your property value is going to go up $30,000 to $60,000 for this system, and you've only paid $30,000 for it, sounds like when you sell the house, you're going to make anywhere between $30,000 and $60,000 on top of whatever you paid for it. And keep in mind, these panels are going to continue to make a lot of money for you over the years. They're going to make that energy that you're going to need, but also you're going to increase that value when you sell your home. Now, there's the difference. I'm going to use the pool example, right, guys? So how much money did it cost you to put in the ground? Doesn't matter. It's money out of pocket. It's an expense. You own it, but it's still an expense. The difference is the pool you get the benefit of using, it's not going to pay you an income every month. You'll get paid when you sell the house, just the same way you will by having the amenity of solar energy on your home. Well, I love to look at a different example. Joe, possibly, can you show my assets versus liability graph on the screen, if you wouldn't mind, with the audience? Because here's a very interesting bar chart to show you. And I'm going to take my experience from investment banking for a second and realize a couple things, all right? First, we can compare how a benchmark index does over a period of time. Well, if we look at the S&P 500 index, and I'm not saying it went up 100% in 5 years. What I am saying to you is that when this snapshot was made, the average rate of return over 5 years was a little under 100%. And look at what 10 years was, and 15, and 20. That's the orange bar chart. But day one, you start paying off your solar panels. Day one, you start putting that money back into your pocket. Again, day one, you're increasing your property value more likely than not, more than what you paid for the solar system. So the homeowner gets two benefits. He gets to get rid of, or she gets to get rid of, an electric bill. The second benefit, come on, this is huge, guys. You get to sell your house for a lot more money. And the rate of return that you're going to get on your investment, because remember, it's all about the investment rate of return. When was the last time you could take an expense? This is just a general question to the audience right now. And I'd love to see your comments, by the way. When was the last time you could say, I have an expense, guys, that I can get rid of and still get the same benefit for it? I still get my electricity. I still have it. It's still coming. It's just being made from the sun. So literally, you're getting rid of your utility. We are decentralizing the utility experience by producing energy on your roof. You are becoming your own utility for electricity. So when we connect value in this proposition, We want to make sure that you can appreciate and express to the audience as best as possible that there's a huge difference between an expense known as a liability versus something that we own known as an asset. And it is incredible to see that opportunity take place when somebody actually says, yes, I want to go solar, because not only do they impact the environment, again, helping the environment, but they also, more importantly, from a financial perspective, again, that's my background, you know, they impact their wallet. They impact their family's net worth, their financial health. And when was the last time we could figure out one of the many expenses that we have in our home and get rid of it completely? Today's your day. Today is your day. Let's make that happen. Let's impact your world, your neighbor's world, your community, and the global world itself, as well as having a huge benefit. That benefit will make a lifelong financial profit for you and your family too. What a financial benefit it is. I hope all of you got lots and lots of great nuggets from this.
I got a question for you, Randy.
Help, please.
So everybody has the same information, right? Everybody's using the same stuff. Everybody. What separates your conversation with the homeowner than say somebody else who doesn't explain it the same way you do?
You know, I think that comes out to my why. And I think when I sit across the table from investing somebody's money over the years, I realize, you know, I'm advising them on investing the appropriate things that are necessary to do for their business. But when I'm able to sit on the same side of the table, rather than across from them, sitting on the same side of the table and say, look, guys, I'm in your shoes. This is about you, right? What's my why? My why is to make you, to really, not make you, but for you to recognize that true value that takes place. Everyone's going to have a different perspective. You know, everyone's going to connect with somebody differently. The way I connect is recognizing that I don't have to be confrontational. I don't have to be confrontational across the table. I don't have to be standoffish. I don't have to wear this role of I am more knowledgeable than you. I just have to guide you in the right direction. Because it's really, and I've heard this statement used before, and anybody on this call, please, no disrespect to this statement, but it's really like an IQ test. If you can't figure out that this doesn't make financial sense for you, then the person that you're being sold solar versus buying the solar from is not doing their job. So connecting in that relationship, it's paramount. It's super important. You know, I hope that, you know, I mean, that's kind of my why.
That's great, man. And, you know, I really appreciate, you know, every time we have a conversation, this is how you really, like, I had some nuggets right here. Like, I love the idea of finding more expenses that we may not even be talking about with the homeowner, because at the end of the day, there is many expenses that we can help solve. So I love that part about it. One more question before we'll wrap up the training, and then maybe we'll go to a Q&A, is what I really like about you too is that you could do whatever you want. Like, you could go to, retire in Cancun. You could do whatever you want. You choose to sell solar. So obviously your financial background is a big reason why, but what's like, you can still make money other things. Like, you still go back to, investing. Why solar? What is what is the total package about solar that, kind of brings you to?
So this is a good question. So I have a specialty in oil and gas. I happen to have a lot of background knowledge in oil and gas, specifically in sectors of the market called economic development. So what does that mean? So that means, a new community opens up. It's a brand new build in your neighborhood, and under the ground, infrastructure needs to be built. Who pays for that economic development? The The answer is you pay for it. It's paid with your taxes. It's paid with so many things that you spend no matter what. It's part of your property taxes. And the person that buys that home is also going to be paying for what's underneath the ground around it because it's part of their property taxes. So I have such an understanding of that concept that I realized I wanted to make a huge impact to my kids. I wanted them to see me show the rest of the world can have a better world out of it. And I'm used to dealing with people that had hundreds of millions of dollars, not people that are worried about 40 or 50,000 bucks. The difference is that we as consumers will always have an electric bill. We as consumers always have that expense. We as a consumer, we're not educated to show them how not to have an expense. Just as I was advising people over the years on my business, how to maximize rates of return for their internal business components. Now I'm able to say, you know what? I don't want to be in the oil and gas sector business anymore. It's a fossil fuel that's being burned. I want to change my children's life. I want them to know that dad made a difference. You know, I'm a big believer in family. A big believer that, you know, I can be a father, I could be a son, I could be a spouse. But I think my biggest why, Joe, is that I have a passion for impacting the world. And I don't think it's just both fiscal. I don't think it's just individually fiscally. I think it's environmentally too. And that's my why. But the truth behind that is like that banking and lending statement, you know, like truth, you know, like just like the dollar bill. You have to have full faith behind it. If you can't talk about it with passion and true understanding, how do you expect to sell this?
You hit that right on the head, man. That was a perfect ending. You just dropped the mic, and you're definitely impacting the world. I can see it, and you're killing it. And really, I can see the difference. And I appreciate you making the time to do that training. Everybody watching, if you guys enjoyed that, go put in the comments. Thanks, great job. Or if you think you did terrible, put terrible job. I don't think anybody can do that.
I'm honored and appreciative for the platform.
You're the
but
man.
For all people that are listening right now, you have an amazing person across from me, next to me on video, who has such great knowledge and communication that I can't say enough about Joe. You know, and just as I feel impacted and empowered when I listen to Joe and how he conveyed this conversation with me before inviting me on, I have to tell you that here's a guy who impacts everyone every single day. So I thank you for allowing me to be part of it too. And for the audience, feel free to share your comments you know, I'd love to hear about them. I would love to hear about them, but I'm sure Joe would as well. So thank you, Joe.
It's not about me, and I really appreciate that. This is about you. This is about our awesome guests that come out and give free value with asking nothing in return, and I really appreciate that. So it really comes down to that. I have a few more minutes with you. Is it cool? We can do a Q&A. Go to comments.
Go, please.
Let's go. Solar Pro Q&A.
Solar Pro Q&A it is.
Let's go. Transition time. So we got a bunch of comments. I want to get everybody in there really quick. Facebook user said, hey, and we got a Spanish speaker. Saludos from Dallas, Texas.
Saludos.
Hell yeah, let's go. Fire. You got more fans than just me, I can tell you that. Let's go. Wes Cagle in the house. Yo, here, Joe. I got a fan here. Love it. So Wes Cagle had a comment. Beautiful. Expense that I can get rid of and still get the same value.
Exactly. Well said, Wes. I like that.
Wes is amazing. Solar Pro too. Love it, Randy.
Thank you.
So we got Wes jumping in. Lifelong financial profit of you and your family. Badass.
You know, I want to hit on that for a second. Can I? Would you mind?
This is your stage. Go for
Wes,
it.
I'm going to directly engage with you for a second. I agree. It's a lifelong financial profit for you and your family. But I want you to think of it even more finitely. It's you and your family. Think of an expense every single month, $150. Once you own your solar panels, you don't have that expense anymore, but you still produce the energy that's being produced from it. What could you do with an extra $150 a month? So we talk about lifelong financial profits. Now, if I talk to my wife, she'll figure out a way of spending it. I promise you. Okay. But add value to the family. Whatever she spends it on is going to add value. But to give yourself the flexibility. So not only is it lifelong financial profit for you and your family, but it's also living your life. And I'm going to coin something that Jim Bunch says often. You get to live your life by design, because now you get to choose where you want to spend that expense rather than living it by default, which is that obligation. So, Wes, awesome statement.
That's you too, man. Exactly. Live life by design.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Wes K goes at delivery. That's key. And recognize versus understand. Love it. And
Perfect.
guide versus steer. So we got, Steve, you're getting so much value. People are really soaking this stuff in, especially Wes too. Facebook users said, thanks, Randy. So awesome.
My pleasure.
Coming up for you. So be ready. Okay.
Say that again.
You have one objection coming up for you to handle. So be ready.
Can't wait.
Great information. Thank you. All right, here we go. Are you ready?
Of course.
Facebook user wants you to answer this objection. What's your answer to what's the return on my investment?
You know, first of all, I have to tell you, it's a wonderful way of asking me, how much money am I going to make on my money? Like, let's talk about it for what it is, right? So I'm an East Coast guy, so you'll forgive my tongue-in-cheek attitude because I have this, you know, a little cavalier approach, and I don't want it to come across that way. So
East Coast flavor. Let's go.
What was that?
East Coast flavor. It's all good.
I hear that a lot. But the return on the investment is immediate. It's not like you have to wait for the amount of money to be returned to you. For example, you take your money and you choose to invest it in an equity index fund. All right. I'm not giving financial advice. I'm not registered anymore. Okay. I have to give those disclosures. But I want you to understand that you're going to invest your money and it's going to change based on a market that's going to have variable things that are going to make it move in an upward direction or a downward direction. There's no downward direction with solar energy as an investment. Why is that? Because when you start converting that expense that you're making somebody else wealthier, the utility company, you're giving your money away. And I'll use a different another example. When you rent a home, it's an expense out of pocket every month. You don't get to control what you can do with the property. It's not yours. When you own your house, you may have a mortgage on it, but at some point, once the mortgage is done, you own it. And I want to make sure that I clarify this even further. My example. When you own your home, it's considered an asset. When you have a mortgage, it's not an asset, guys. It's a liability. It's truly an expense. It's a completely different concept from the way most people recognize they say they own their house. You can change the property, you can add to it, you can take away from it, you could completely rebuild the property. But if you have a loan on your property, you don't own it. Well, think about your electricity for a second. It's renting it, isn't it? There's no end date. You have that bill every month. So what's the return on the investment? Well, I can't give you a specific rate of return, but based on my factual data that I provided to you, If the average home has a 10 kilowatt system, the average cost is less than $40,000. I'm going to just use that term as less than $40,000. And if we recognize that the government's going to give you back about 10 of it, it's going to go up between 5 and 17% of your house value. Well, let's be real, right? What's the average homeowner in the United States? And let's talk even further, guys. How many single family homeowners are in the United States? There's 130 million and growing, right? How many qualify for solar energy, guys? 90 million.
Let's go.
And how many have solar? 4 million homes throughout the United States have solar energy. 4 million. There's no place for them to go but up. You have to recognize that when you talk about what's the return on my investment, you're converting a 100% expense into a 100% ownership opportunity. And you're getting compensated twice.
There you go.
You're getting compensated monthly because you're producing your own energy. Again, you are becoming your own utility company. So I know that this is an unidentified Facebook user, but you have to remember, Mr. Facebook user, Miss Facebook user.
Yeah.
Them Facebook user, if I want to be PC. but I do want you to know that you're getting compensated twice, right? Monthly, and then when you sell the house, because you're going to increase your property value. How much? 5 to 17%. And in states like the coasts, not the middle, but the coasts, it's more aggressive. There's more solar energy on the coast than there are in the middle of the country. And that has to do with political dynamics too. But in states like New Jersey, you're going to get paid an additional 45% for going solar. What? Huh?
People don't know, bro.
I know. You're going to actually get paid 70% of the total cost of your system. So $40,000 system, you're getting paid almost $30,000 in government benefits.
It's so awesome.
I don't know. $10,000 for a total out-of-pocket expense for something that's going to last for 45 years.
Oh my God.
What's the return on the investment? If you're spending $150 a month today, and you go for paying off your panels, an example, 15 years to $90 a month, I don't know. Once you own the panels, you're only paying $10,000, $12,000 for the whole system's cost. Over 15 years, you went from an $1,800 bill to, wait, did I just say that correctly? Oh my gosh.
Did I tell you guys he's long-winded, but how great is the value of information? And this guy is a grinder. He's closing virtually and today.
One today.
So, listen, learn, take perspective from everybody and see, like, this is what's going on. I have a couple of questions for you, Randy, just because I got you on here and I think the audience will appreciate it.
Sure.
What's like a gold nugget? Because your background is completely different than 99% of solar pros out there. What kind of gold nugget that your background is giving you, or, more power? What's giving you, and what has helped you with your investment banking career in the solar, besides the financing, obvious part of it?
So in education was key, right? So one of the most important components of any business is recognizing that the education can never be taken away from you. So I'm gonna add that statement by saying, look, Solar Joe, you're providing a platform for education. This platform for education, and I'm gonna coin a phrase I say often, is paramount towards developing the right skill set to be successful. And I just didn't develop my skill set overnight. You think about college for a second, think about high school, think about grad school, think about law school. And education can never be taken away from you. Ask yourself this question, Joe. How many hours were you in school in high school? And I'm not saying all the days that you cut out, okay?
8 hours a day, right?
But what I am saying is, let's just say you went to college and it was for 4 years. And, how did you get that degree? Well, look at it this way. If you work 50 weeks out of the year, 40 hours a week, it's 2,000 hours a year. When are you an expert at something? When you repeat something over and over and over again until it comes out fluidly, naturally, and comfortably. So if anything, my investment banking experience taught me to be very aggressive in my behaviors, making sure that I knew a lot more than the audience I was speaking to. Not because I wanted to be omniscient, but because I felt that the more educated I was, which is just a really great statement for the Solar Academy, because you're learning from this platform. This platform is going to develop the opportunity for you, whoever's listening, the audience, for you to really gain this information. It's going to make you have better decisions available and being able to communicate those things to others in the same community. So I really think that the education is key to any successful career. But my investment banking perspective, I look at things in such an umpteenth degree. For one last tongue-in-cheek statement, one wakes up in the morning every single day. What do? That are just like 375 million other United States citizens that live next door to them. Well, what are you going to do? You're going to brush your teeth. You're going to get dressed. You're going to go to work. Well, my brain was taught to break things down even further, Joe. For example, and I don't know if you've heard this story from me before, but you're going to brush your teeth with a Colgate Palmolive product. If not you, one of your other 375 million people will. You're going to get dressed, and you're going to realize that 90% of the world's detergents are made by one company. Now, I'm going to show you something, not that I want to sell this, but, these are Post-its, right? 3M makes these. I mean, not Post-its brands, but, the Post-its 3M makes these. 3M it's an acronym. It stands for Minnesota Mining and Manufacturing. They make 90% of the world's detergents. We all know that our kids, when they get dressed, they're not getting in dirty clothes. That we all know that they're brushing their teeth. We all know that they may go to work in a car, train, plane, auto, however they go to work, right? But if you're not driving a Chrysler, Ford, or GM, your neighbors may. But we're all using ExxonMobil, BP, Amoco, and Chevron Texaco gasoline in our cars. I break things down to an umpteenth degree. My background taught me to really understand the components that drive different sectors of markets. Every one of those stocks I just talked about, every one of those companies are stocks. They're all part of the Dow Jones Industrial Index. Every one of them. Each and every single one of them. And why are they on the index? Because they represent an asset class that's over $5 billion in assets. So there's the smarts from the years of experience, right? Being able to convey that information to the audience and make sure that you understand that it's a deeper dive than just understanding solar makes sense. Like, we're talking right now about whether it's an asset versus a liability and recognizing why your electric bill is a liability or an expense versus solar, which is really not an expense, guys. It's an asset. And when you have something that you own and you want to sell it with your house, it's going to add value to it. So I want everyone to take away that piece from this discussion today, but know that the Solar Academy is the platform that's deriving that for you.
That's beautiful, bro. I really, really appreciate that. And education is paramount. I mean, that is definitely number one. So I appreciate you saying that and going into depth about that. All right. We talked a lot about solar and, solar asset, but let's talk about you a little bit before we go, man, because I want to build what kind of, things you like to do outside of solar. What kind of hobby, what kind of interest are you into, Andy?
So I'm a fan. I'm a runner. I am a certified yoga instructor.
Oh yeah, you're a yoga instructor. That's awesome.
I became a yoga instructor about 10 years ago. I love it. I had an injury. I had a spinal injury. I hurt my spine. I had a herniated disc in my neck. I go to the orthopedist and he says to me, the only way for you to really get it back into shape, Not that it's ever going to be fixed perfectly, but to keep the flexibility going. And I kind of hated yoga at the time, but wound up loving it so much that I wanted the education to learn how to make sure proper movements took place in my body. I don't teach yoga, but I became a certified yoga instructor. And why? This is me living my life by design, for example, because an education can never be taken away from you. So yoga is a passion of mine. I love it. We love to travel. You know, we're going to go away this weekend, which is going to be nice, you know, but it's just what makes me whole. And I'm a big family guy. And I love my family. That's about me. You know, I do anything for my family. Anyway.
That's awesome. That's part of your why, right?
It's definitely part of
it. I get it, man. So, all right, last question. I know you're super busy and we got
No. I'm here for you. But yes, thank you.
I appreciate it, man. So last one, because I really like to focus on newer solar pros and seeing how we can offer them help and advice. So if somebody came new to solar industry and they asked for advice, just straight up advice, like what would you say to them?
I would say surround yourself with a good group of people that you can learn from. And I would also teach others to be successful by making sure that they hold themselves to a very high professional level. So this is what most industries drive towards. Some sort of level of professionalism. I'm going to keep going after the educational piece. Every day you should be learning about a new thing, whether it's about solar storage, whether it's about the art of selling to somebody that may not be your audience, or whether or not it has to do with reading about where the solar energy business is going. Like, for example, we all know Walmart, we all know Target, right? Do you know that every single one of these companies spends tens of millions of dollars every year on putting solar energy on their properties? They're big business. I'm going to ask everyone a general question right now, Joe, but how about this? You're the audience at the moment, so how about this? Do you think that those businesses that have been around a long time are smart enough to know that they would be wasting their money by having solar energy on their properties?
Yeah, they're not throwing away money, I can tell you that.
and adding that from an investment banking piece, their shareholders, their stockholders, the people that own the business, they own the equity in the company. Their board of directors, if they make bad financial decisions for the business, they're going to have to answer to their shareholders. And I'm going to let everyone know right now that they have mandates right now that say that they will be moving in that direction. They're producing their own energy. How about this, Joe? I'll ask the audience this question. Google this one. How many gas stations have solar panels on top of their roof?
That's a good one.
How many? Ask yourself that question. Google that one all. And I'll let you know right now, a lot. And there's more every single day. And the reason it's not that they're selling a fossil fuel, which they are, but they have an electric expense on average north of $1,500 to $3,000 a month. That's their electric costs. And once again, if we as homeowners can learn about these things, sell it to other people, and grow a team to do this as well, you too will be successful in the solar energy business.
I love it, man. I could actually talk to you for hours, and we have before. Yeah. So we could keep going. But last one, man, if anybody want to reach out to you and pick your brain, or any other last thoughts you want to end with?
I'm sorry, ask the question again.
Sure. If anybody wanted to reach out to you, pick your mind, how can they reach out to you? And any other last thoughts you want to leave up with?
Sure. Well, thank you for that last plug, but you can reach out to me at Randy at Soleil Soul.
Spell that.
Yes, RANDY at SOLEILSOL.com. My number, 201-290-4500. Happy to answer any and all questions. But I'm still going to defer to the Solar Academy because right now, this is about Joe. This is about the Solar Academy. And quite honestly, this is a true fundamental thought for me. So my last thought, education can never be taken away from you. You really want to sell solar? You want to impact your family's life in the right direction? Learn how to sell solar correctly. Stay on a platform that teaches you the right professional ethics to do so. And then you will be held out of other audiences and be held accountable to, I am a solar professional. I am not a novice. Most people that enter the sales business realize that they need to understand the lingo. But more importantly, you have to understand what's behind the language of it. So that's where it comes from. So I'll leave you on that thought. And then I hope everyone has a great evening. I hope everyone has a great day if you're watching it during the day. And I'll leave you on this thought, okay? And this comes from one of my mentors, all right? We won't see you here. We'll see you way over the top.
Let's go. That's awesome, Randy. Man, you're awesome. I really appreciate you being on here. And we're not done yet. Next week, we have another awesome solar pro, Jake Wilson.
Nice.
And we're going to go over a solar refinance option that the industry doesn't even know about. So really excited about that.
Super excited to hear about it.
Yeah, man. So see you next week. Randy, again, you are the man. We're going to keep talking. I appreciate everything I learned from you. But everybody, we are over and out. Peace.
Really nice to meet everyone tonight. Thank you for joining us. And remember,